You need to know what's going on in South Surrey and White Rock for the latest and greatest real estate stats. And that's exactly what this video is about today. I got to apologize. It is uber late coming out, but better late than never. And I think this information is going to really surprise you. So with that being said, let's jump into it right now.
Chance to buy or sell your next home. Let's get it right.
You got to get the intro in there, right? You don't want to miss that. So what's happening in South Surrey, White Rock, guys? Before I get into that, I actually want to read a little bit something to you that I think you're going to find really interesting. And this is published by the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board. So what does it say? Well, it says the most recent statistics package anyways. So what it says is home buyers in the Fraser Valley are enjoying a selection of homes for sale not seen in more than a decade. This has been one of the more challenging real estate markets I've worked in the 18 years that I've been selling real estate. There's more selection out there in more than a decade. I want you to think about what that means. There's over 10,000 active listings available for sale right now. To put that into perspective, really, really crazy times when COVID was happening, as an example, there was probably about 3,000 listings on the market, and we had what was called a sales to active ratio at times where it was high as about 50%, meaning every one out of every two properties that went to the market were selling in that month. That's a wildly busy market. Fast forward to today. Well, where are we today? Well, we're at a sales to active ratio at about 10%. Okay, so that means about one out of every 10 properties are actually selling or transacting each and every month, which means buyers have a ton to choose from, a ton of time to make decisions, and that is going to impact pricing, something we're going to talk about very shortly here. The Fraser Valley Real Estate Board recorded 1,043 sales on its multiple listing service, which is down 29% year over year. Now, last year was not a banner year. That was not a year to get excited about. We're down 29% since last year. So there's many reasons for that. And we're going to get into those later on in the video. But I want to put that into a little bit of perspective. When it comes to the 10-year average, as an example, we're trailing near about 50% below the 10-year average. And I want you to, again, think about what that means, right? In terms of how many properties are actually transacting. Now, I also want to share with you that the market, it's not dead. Okay. There is properties transacting. I just told you over 1,000 properties transacted from North Delta all the way to Abbotsford last year. But for the seasonal type or time of year, the spring, which is typically the busiest market, it's slow. It's a lot slower than it typically is. So not to say things aren't selling, but certainly, it is a little bit slower than it would be or could be or should be. So what's going on in South Surrey and White Rock? Well, for condominiums, you saw the market improve ever so slightly. Well, actually, it came out of a buyer's market condition and is up into a balanced market condition. It's trending upwards, where you're seeing about 17% of properties that are coming to the market regarding condominiums in South Surrey and White Rock are actually transacting. That should start having an impact on pricing sooner than later. Now, the graph I'm showing you here is what the Fraser Valley says is the benchmark value and how that's changed of condominiums in the area. But I do find that these particular graphs, when it comes to the benchmark pricing, tend to trail what's actually really happening in the market by about 2 months or so. So it's showing me that prices are down month over month. That's what the numbers say, and I won't argue with them. But the conditions have begun to improve a little bit for condominiums. So over the last year, we're down about $19,000 for the average price or the benchmark price for condominium in the neighborhood. And month over month, we're about $6,600 down. So that is what the numbers are telling us. Now, what's going on? Who's got an advantage in a market like this? Well, it is the buyers. Okay. Now, showing where the sales active ratio is headed, I want you to pay attention because the activity is starting to improve in that market, which will swing the fate if it continues going that way. Obviously, affordability is still challenging, regardless of what type of product people are buying. But we have had tons of rate cuts over the last few months. And we do have an announcement from the Bank of Canada coming up in early June. So you're going to want to pay attention to that because really the question is, well, how many more rate cuts have to happen until buyers get off their hands and start to buying these properties? So we'll talk about that towards the end of the video a little bit more. The other thing I want you to know is that new construction is still very stalled. So you're not seeing a whole lot of projects getting built right now. There's a lot of projects that are supposed to be getting built, supposed to be getting started. The Semiahmoo Town Center plan is a really good example of that. And if you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, jump onto our YouTube channel, type in Semiahmoo. you'll find a video all about what's going on there and the crazy development that's about to come anytime now. But that new construction is really stalled. So there is an advantage here to buyers to pay attention. I'm not saying today is the day to buy, but I do want you to pay attention to that, because if no new construction is being built right now, that means about 2 years from now, there's not going to be new construction coming onto the market. And we've got a new Liberal government who made some promises during their election campaign to say that there was going to be no GST on new construction properties for first-time buyers up to 1.3 million. We know in British Columbia, when you buy new construction as a primary residence, you don't pay property transfer tax. Imagine new construction coming to the market where there is no tax on that property. That's really hard for resale properties to compete. So you might have not only a great opportunity to buy new construction in the future, but there's not going to be very many of them that are going to be available. So pay attention to that. Okay. The next one is townhomes. So what's going on with townhomes? Well, townhomes went down a little bit. They're down at 14.6, so they're just shy of a balanced market condition. But I would almost still call it a balanced market condition. That's still pretty favorable, or unfavorable for both parties, favorable for both parties, whatever way you want to spin that sort of thing. But the home price index is telling me that prices actually did go up month over month. You've seen those increase relatively since about November, and this is not just for townhomes. We're actually seeing this consistent with detached homes as well. So I'm going to show you that in a moment here. But month over month, you're going to see that townhomes are up about $8,000 according to the home price index. And year over year, they're up about $27,000. So something to pay attention to. If you've been sitting on the fence and you think the market is dead, well, it's costing you money every single month. That's what the numbers show. Whether you like the information or not, that's what it's showing me. So we'll talk about who's got the advantage here, and the advantage really is still for buyers. I mean, if the activity did slow down just under that balanced market, that means that buyers, well, you've got lots of choice. You've got lots to look at. The days on market starting to climb for some of these products, these townhomes in the area, and that just means that there's a little bit of a chance to negotiate, maybe a little better than there was last month. You've got a little more time to look around. You've got a little bit more choice, and that's certainly a good spot to be. Prices are likely going to remain stagnant if the sales to active ratio sits exactly where it is today. You probably won't see much movement, but it has been moving since about November. So continue to pay attention to that. And I am a big believer that this is going to be the market of movement. So why do I say that? Why are townhomes the market of movement, the one to pay attention to? Well, this is the market of the missing middle. It is the market that offers relative affordability for what you get in terms of space. And we know the millennial generation is a lot of those still first-time home buyers. I heard somebody tell me today, I don't know if this is statistically true or not, but they said that the millennial, or the average age of a first-time home buyer, is now about 40 years old. And I'm an elder millennial. I'm 40 years old here as I'm filming this video. So those people likely have families, and if they are able to get into the still relatively affordable townhome market in South Surrey, that offers the space and that offers the affordability that they need. So that's likely going to be a market that's going to continue to see demand and continue to do well. So certainly pay attention to that. Next, we're going to jump into the detached market. You can see how thick this big red line is, signifying between the 15 and 20% of a balanced market. Well, detached homes in South Surrey White Rock are just over 8% sales to active ratio. There is lots to look at, guys. And that's going to have an impact on prices, or so you would think, right? Well, look at what prices have done since the start of 2025. In fact, these are up almost $50,000 since the start of the year. So we've got a market with tons and tons and tons to choose from. The days on market's climbing up. It's really super difficult to sell a detached home in South Surrey and White Rock right now, but you're seeing prices climb. Isn't that interesting? The home price index is showing us that the prices are going up. Something to pay attention to if you've been sitting on your hands here. So over the last month, prices are up about $6,500, and they're up they're down year over year about 51,000. So if I go back there, you can see, they did come down quite a bit for where they were in 2023. Basically, in the spring of 2023 is kind of where we saw the peaks, and then it kind of started sliding from there. So you're down about $51,000 year over year. Who's got the advantage in a market like this? Well, your buyers. You've got lots of inventory to choose from. I would much rather buy the right house than maybe save a little bit of money on it. Personally, you can make those decisions for yourself, but there is lots of inventory to choose from. There is tons and tons and tons on the market. Maybe that gives you a good opportunity to negotiate better as well. If you're a seller watching this, pricing your home right really, really matters. You've got to get it right. Otherwise, you're going to have some problems getting rid of it. I told an anecdote in another video that a lot of the more productive realtors in the office at McDonald Realty here were all saying that, when you price a home kind of in and around where you think it should maybe sell, it ends up being really, really quite quiet. But if you price it maybe just a little slightly better than that, those are the ones that are tending to get the action, tending to get the offers, that sort of thing. Um, I would think if the market continues to be at an 8% sales to active ratio, which is terrible, that's like 1 out of 12 homes coming to the market selling, prices should be challenged. But they're growing, which is super interesting. So whatever that phenomenon is doing that, I have no idea. Maybe it's just the fact that we live in such a beautiful community and it's always in demand, and maybe it's going to continue to do that, and we'll have to wait and see. Leave a comment and let me know what you think. But what's going on generally? Let's talk about market drivers. Well, mortgage rates. We've got a mortgage rate announcement coming up towards the beginning of June, so you're going to want to pay attention to that. And really, the question I'm asking myself is, we've had, I think, 7 consecutive rate cuts outside of the one that just was announced in April. How many more need to happen until people really start diving into the real estate market, right? Like, money is a lot cheaper than it was. I don't think we can really complain about high rates anymore. They were high, not historically speaking, but maybe in the last 10 years they were high, but they've certainly come down quite a bit. So, how much further do they have to go until people really start coming back into the market? So we'll have to see what happens with that rate announcement in early June. We've also got economic shifts on here, and I added one, USA, tariffs and whatnot. There's a lot of uncertainty coming from our neighbors to the south, and we never know day to day what's really going to be happening and whatnot. So, that carries into our local economy. People are a little curious about, or maybe fearful is a better way of saying it, about what, their job stability might look like, what might happen with the economy. And, there's a belief set out there that if you're looking to buy a home and you're pretty convinced that home is going to be cheaper tomorrow, you're probably going to sit on your hands and you're going to wait and see what happens, right? So that'll be interesting to see. And hopefully some stability comes to that relatively shortly. We know the demand is there. There's lots of people that want to buy a home. And, if you think mortgage rates are in and around where they were in 2022, when lots of people were still buying homes, you've got all this inventory, lots of great options out there, but people are just sitting on their hands, and prices have come down as well, over the last couple of years. So the prices are there when people were buying homes. The interest rates are there. The mortgage rates are there when people were buying homes. So what's it going to take to start pushing people over? So you're going to want to pay attention to that. We are in the busiest, or typically the busiest time of year, and we are down quite a bit seasonally. So, will that change? Tough to say. Maybe we're going to see a delayed spring market, but usually the spring market is where we see the most amount of transactions actually taking place. And the last one on there's local policy changes. Our government, well, they've been relatively quiet over the last little bit. They did a lot last year. Hopefully they're going to let things settle, and they're actually starting to change their tune a little bit on some of their things as well. In fact, our premier met with a group of realtors in Victoria. This is all over the news, and they're trying to figure out where all the investors in real estate went. And well, that's because they got driven out by some of the policies they introduced. So they're now trying to find ways to bring those people back in, because without that investment in our buildings and our building environment, you don't have investment, things aren't getting built, right? So they're trying to figure out ways to bring that back. So very, very interesting to keep an eye on that. Anyways, thanks for hanging with me. I hope this was useful for you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave in the comment. You can also get in touch with me through the description below, or in the description of this video, rather, if you want to reach out, whether it's email or book a time to speak with me and my team. And we'll look forward to seeing you next month. Sorry for being so late on this video, and thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe for everything about South Surrey White Rock real estate. Cheers.